and share some of my thoughts. A little bit of a different perspective here. I know there's been a lot of great technical talks today, Kubernetes, monitoring, all those different aspects of the platform. But I want to take a bit of a different angle and something that really shares our experience as we've stepped into CloudStack, head first, right? And going from largely enterprise-supported products and trying to really step into what is it like going into open source and what was that transition like for us. So a little bit about me. I've spent pretty much my whole career in infrastructure. I think that's a theme amongst a lot of our leadership team. We just live and breathe and eat infrastructure for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A little bit of everything, but very much a network engineer at heart. So if you ever want to get nerdy about networking, talk about VXLAN and your implementation, let me know. Happy to have that discussion. But one of the biggest things that's been a focus of, especially of my last year and a half, is driving a lot more of open source adoption in our product portfolio. Historically, a lot of those things that have been customer facing for us have been, other more established enterprise backup solutions, VMware-based products, and I don't like paying people, so I like open source. No, but so I spent a lot of time heads down in CloudStack, really building out our implementation and what eventually became Open Cloud and all the other supporting infrastructure around it, with a great team of other engineers too that assisted. But in my free time and what I'm heading back to first thing in the morning tomorrow are my 2 little children who my wife is so graciously watching for a week. I also love music, playing drums. I proposed to Steve that we need to have next year a band at the conference of conference members. So maybe you'll see me out there. And I spent a lot of time in a couple of Leica boutiques in Milan during my free time because I love vintage cameras and tried to show restraint and not spend a lot of money. You've probably seen this slide in a few of our presentations. I won't spend too much time on it, but the biggest thing we had, that's really been consuming a lot of our time, really pretty all of us that are here, is our open cloud and everything that comes around that, all the products that are really underpinned by that solution. I love that we also embody the connectivity element here. That's a big part of my day-to-day currently, where I'm responsible for a lot of our IP, MPLS, optical transport. But that really helps us make open cloud very effective, right, for our customers, especially extending across multiple data centers. But a little bit about our open source history, right? Where have we been as an organization, and where did we start? Where have we gone to? And if we take it a little bit of a graph here, the first place we started was internal infrastructure. So think of things like moving away from, I think we had some instances of physical load balancer hardware. We moved away from that. We moved to virtual load balancers using HA proxy. But that was something we didn't necessarily get to overnight, right? But it was something that was relatively low impact for us. It was something that we could get our feet wet into using some open source technologies, maybe find a way to save a little bit of money along the way. But it took some time, right? We had to get people to help make it easy to execute, to orchestrate, to work with. We started to then introduce more customer-facing projects, right? So object storage was that next step for us in our journey. We took the dangerous deep dive into Ceph, but while that was a customer-facing product, most customers just entered some API keys into a backup product, and that was a better solution for doing some cold backup storage for those customers. Observability really became part of that, and I think as we started to introduce some of these open source tools in the internal infrastructure and in object storage, we started to learn the limitations of some of our more enterprise-supported observability platforms. If you were in the session earlier, you probably heard a lot about Grafana and Prometheus. That was a lot of what we started to implement ourselves to get some different data, more metric-based data, things like that we could leverage in our environment. And we've even continued this to today. We're heavily investing in Zabbix for a lot of those more SNMP-based monitoring solutions, and then getting further visibility into our open cloud deployment through a lot more Grafana and Prometheus-based observability information. Our provisioning tools are things that we've either developed, our own solutions to achieve from a network perspective, but also leveraged some of our other hardware vendors who have open sourced their provisioning tools, which has really reduced the time to get our customers in our environments and up and running. And it's something we couldn't have done if some of those projects weren't available and widely open sourced. I've been able to contribute back to those projects because of use cases we had with our customers, and it's really simplified our whole process for bringing in new customers within our cloud. But then the most notable one that's been seen and felt across our entire organization and our entire customer base has really been open cloud. And the real important thing here is that as the adoption of these tools have grown, so did the impact on our business. We're seeing it from what the margins look like from a sales perspective, what it looks like for our engineers to continue to interact with the platform. And that's a little bit more of what I'm going to highlight here today as far as what was it like for us as an organization internally to be able to adapt to consuming an open source platform such as CloudStack. When we think about enterprise supported products, though, there's a bit of a safety net that comes with it that makes you sleep well at night. And that's everything from SLAs, knowing when somebody's going to give you a call back, when you're going to get an engineer on the line, when they're going to attempt to resolve that issue. A lot of those things are just definitely a peace of mind, knowing that when you have to get engaged in those cases, you have that stuff there, typically contractually obligated. I know there's a lot of instances where I'm very glad, in some of our more complex products that there is somebody there that we know we can call. Some of that comes with robust documentation. You may have a breadth of it too. You may have everything from design and implementation guides, reference architectures. They're probably putting out video content. There's a variety of different channels to consume a lot of the content that's there that comes with that enterprise support. Sure, it may be behind a paywall, but if you're going down that route, they're trying to give you all the tools you need to continue to use and consume that product. And then expertise. Maybe you're getting a system engineer or a sales engineer, somebody that's working with you or able to escalate your situation, your case to various other architects and engineers within a company. That's also another nice thing to have, right? In addition to that documentation piece, to be able to go to those resources and know they're there to answer your question or your specific use case of a platform. You have that back to Pat more organizationally, right? When you need to escalate to your account managers, your account executives, somebody to say, I really need you guys to get this done, or I really need you guys to deliver on this. You have somebody there that's really there to rely on and to lean in on. And I think liability is the other big piece, especially a lot of the leaders are thinking about. And that's, whether it's cybersecurity related or, other things that happen with a platform, bugs you may run into and encounter with those enterprise supported platforms. It can make things a lot easier when you're going to them and saying, well, this one's on you guys. And, this was part of your, contractually obligated delivery. And it definitely helps when you're trying to address things, especially as a provider that's serving multiple customers. But with all this, right, there's a lot of things you don't get, right? You don't get the flexibility in consumption. I know even just today, between today and yesterday, talking to people about various aspects of a CloudStack implementation, there's, somebody said, you're the fourth different database architecture I've heard you guys have implemented for the platform, right? There's a lot of those things you don't get necessarily with an enterprise-based, closed-sourced product. And being able to have that, not have that in enterprise support could complicate the situation, right? And how you want to be able to effectively consume a platform. So how did we create our new safety net and really make ourselves comfortable with CloudStack? For us, we spent a lot of time looking for documentation, looking for answers to questions, trying to find answers to the issues we were encountering. There was a lot of historical mailing list searches. Some of you may have found design guides from, I think, Confluence or out there on the interwebs. We spent a lot of time just delving into that. I remember spending a week, like how do I want to deploy the console proxy and other system VMs, and how do I want to load balance them? Do I not want to load balance them? And trying to find all of that information is not necessarily in one place, and it definitely takes time to develop what all information you need for the platform. Something we never had to do before with other platforms is have community involvement. Sure, we may have had at a point in time some users who would go to VMUG, VMware user group meetings, but it was not the same, right? It wasn't where you had to go to a public forum to file your bugs. You know, those are things your account team was handling for you, or support that you were engaging. And so we had to really adapt as a team and say, hey, if we see something, we need to speak up. We need to file a discussion, file an issue, put it out to the mailing list. You know, let's really get involved in this community, and not just be consumers. For us, we thought it was important to really engage somebody with expert knowledge of the platform, even though we were, even though it is an open source solution. So we engaged ShapeBlue in our process. They helped provide a lot of design validation up front, which really gave us a bit of peace of mind as we stepped into this journey in our process. And all of those three pieces there really helped build our Bible, right? It was our way to kind of take, you know, the best of the published CloudStack documentation, what we learned from the mailing lists, how we designed all the other supporting architecture that you don't cover, right? The network, the storage, and it helped us build out our documentation. We've highlighted it in a few of our presentations, both internal and external documentation, so that we can make sure anybody from our tier 1 support, our sales engineers, to a customer who's never heard of CloudStack before can delve into our product and be able to understand how we built it, why we built it, and how to achieve their goals. And now what that's looking like is expanding our resources. So we've really committed to this platform, and expanding those resources has been everything from working with ShapeBlue on some accelerating some feature development, to looking at hiring our own resources to really help us broaden what we're using the platform for, how the platform appears. That's something that's definitely top of mind for us as we continue to mature our offering of CloudStack. So what are some of those avenues to find support? There are many different out there. I'm going to highlight, I think, what is most of them. Somebody could probably tell me one that is not on this list, which I think is just good to know, because it's not always readily apparent where it is to find different pieces of information and how to engage in those. So the first is the mailing lists. If you're into this project, committed to this project, and you haven't signed up for the mailing lists, highly recommend it. It's very interesting just to see the pulse, to see what people are doing, what challenges they're running into. And it's also a great way to get involved that doesn't involve submitting code or anything like that, right? There are a lot of questions I think many people, even in this room, could answer just based on your experience with CloudStack to date that people are having. It's a really great community for the users there. Again, asking questions, getting insight from others on topics and considerations you have for your deployment. There's issues and discussions within GitHub. Discussions is kind of an interesting maturation of kind of what issues used to be, but another good place to ask questions that occur. And then when you think, hey, you know what, I've spent some time, I've looked at these, the different existing issues, past issues, discussions, mailing list, I think it's time to file an issue, right? So that's another place to go and say, hey, here's something I'm experiencing, or here's a feature I think we need to account for, provide some detail and some context, and then let the community take that and run with it. Pull requests. So especially if you're new to the community, you might not be jumping into submitting these, but these are great places to get an idea of the project direction, right? What are some of those issues and other things that have started to become committed to the code base? Or if you're trying to dial into how a feature was implemented, that's a great way to look at the exact code that was put in to support that initiative and follow those testing procedures. There's also the Slack. This is an interesting one to me. I saw some interest amongst the mailing list of people wanting to get involved in the Slack. I'm not seeing a lot of traction there, so it'll be interesting to see if that really continues to be something that is an actual channel for communicating within the community, but nevertheless, it is also there. There's the documentation, the official documentation. It's nice because you can kind of navigate the different versions that exist. But I think something where there's an opportunity here for the community is to continue to get involved in finding things in the documentation that's out of date, maybe maybe is worth a discussion around, should this thing be deprecated? Are these values right? There's, I think, a great opportunity for people who are continuing to invest in CloudStack to say, hey, I think this is wrong, or I think this needs to be updated in the documentation. And user groups. You have the CloudStack Collaboration Conference, the EU and India user groups. David said it in his presentation earlier today. We would love to see North American user groups. So that's something we would love to be a part of. But it's a great place to also commune over shared interest in the project, right? Share the ideas. I love that there's presentations as part of those groups, right? For people to spend time, ask questions. If today is any glimpse of that, I'm sure the user groups are also just as equally as productive for sharing new ideas and getting those out there in the community. Some tips and some things that we found along the way that have really helped us out as we've continued to grow in our usage. Use those mailing lists and discussions as a good first step. Really spend some time looking at finding those keywords that map to what you're looking to do or achieve, and really delve in to see, hey, has this been solved? And it never left that mailing list discussion. But if you start to realize, hey, it's not there, I got to take it to the next level, I got to file an issue or a discussion, the more context, the better. And this is where, because of the breadth of the breadth of options you have with CloudStack, the more context you can provide to your implementation, the better it is for the community to be able to step in and support. This is not unlike any other tax support case you might have on an enterprise-supported platform where they're asking you for a log file, they're asking you for all this information. The more that's provided there, the better everybody will be able to help contribute to your issue. And don't shy away from contributions. I think even, back to the documentation, I think is a great example, right? Even a small correction could help a large portion of users. So if I think this is something too where it was in one of the other discussions, we need to continue to encourage participation. So, it's not a place for us to, shame others if they do something wrong. Sure, we can correct them, but we should be welcoming and getting people continued to be engaged and contributing in any way that's possible. So just to highlight a little bit of the process and kind of what we found the support workflow looks like for a lot of our enterprise supported products. You start off, you spend a lot of time troubleshooting internally, right? You're looking at your systems. Hey, can I figure this out? Is there something here that I can point to? If that's not working, you're reaching out, you're calling your TAC, you're calling support, you're getting them engaged, getting on some live sessions with them, they're spending time. You're hoping, okay, they hoping they can identify a fix, right? Whether it's a configuration that can be fixed, a hot fix, a restart, if that's really what it needs. But you're working with them, they're helping you identify the fix, deploy the fix, hopefully, right? Providing guides on how to do that. And then, if you're lucky, you're getting a support post-mortem, so you're at least not having to answer the very deep technical, why did this happen? Hopefully they're doing that for you and providing that. And then you're using that to feed in, some of your own internal postmortems, right? What did you find from them? What do I need to share with my customer based on, what the vendor told me during that process of support? I think this process expands quite a bit when you start looking at, a more open source platform, right? Because you have these various channels of support we highlighted earlier, those really come into play here. So you've got, looking at issues, those could be issues or discussions, mailing lists, because some of these things could just be there, right? Those things could be there that somebody solved or ran into before. Or you're opening your own issue and discussion when you've spent that time and you've determined, hey, I think we have a bug, or I think there's a feature here that needs to be added. So then there's the process of identifying the fix, and that may be done through those issues or discussions that are opened. But then the process here looks a little bit different, right? Maybe it is a change that has to get committed to the project. You're waiting for maybe a pull request, and again, back to the contribution side, even if you're not contributing to those things, such as a pull request, contributing to testing it is vital, right? Because you have the environment that you're familiar with and working with, and to know if that fix is going to work, being able to test what the community has spent the time developing to solve your issue is vital. And then deploying the fix, and then coming up with your own internal postmortem, right? You may be able to compile some of that by some of the pull requests, the issues and discussions that have been out there, but that's something that's going to be a little bit more on you. And I think a key aspect here in this process is there's a lot more ownership that comes down to you as the consumer of the platform. And I do think that's healthy, but it is something to be mindful of and aware of as you're going down the route of embracing CloudStack. But I think there are a few opportunities to improve, and there are ways I think we can improve as a community when we think about what this support model looks like. I think there's an opportunity, as I mentioned, to expand user groups. We'd love to be part of that for the Americas if the opportunity exists and interest exists. We also think, has anybody tried to find the getting help guides on the CloudStack docs? I went looking for them, and they're in the developer's guide section, which was a little interesting. I don't think all of those were developer related, but I think there's some opportunity to improve the visibility of those new user guides, because there are more people coming to this project every day. We're seeing it in attendance to this conference and all the other numbers Nicholas highlighted yesterday. I think continuing to make it transparent, easy for people to follow how they can get plugged into the project, what's optimal to use for what, will only help people delve in. If you see something, say something. I spoke to this a couple times, right? You don't want to be this guy who just spends time complaining about it and doesn't file reports. We have been this guy before. There's some point you get so frustrated that you're just like, well, it's not good, it's got a bug, and you don't do anything about it. So this is something I think that is very important for being a user of CloudStack. And the last opportunity here is simplifying the support channels. I think there's a few too many options there. I don't know that Slack's gaining the traction. Maybe that's something that would make sense to say, hey, this once was a thing. We don't see it as a viable solution for ongoing communication for the project. I think there is an opportunity here to simplify what those support channels look like. Few key takeaways, and at least 4 things I hope you take away, at the end of this project. Don't walk it alone. Reach out to other users. I think there's been a lot of great discussions people have had here who are maybe earlier in their journey. That's great. And we're here to have those discussions. We'd love to have those discussions ongoing for things you're running into or you have questions about. Or reach out to some of the organizations that provide some solutions that are support-oriented or over the top that might fit your needs, right? There's the stat consoles of the world for over the top. There's Shape Blue, who can provide some very good knowledge and development resources for the platform. So don't go into that process alone. Embrace the increased ownership, right? Getting involved, contributing to the project. It's really a way to help control your own destiny in a way, right? Sure, you need community involvement and support to continue to support things that you're looking to do, but there's a great opportunity to just have a lot more ownership than you would with any other vendor enterprise supported product. When you're looking at support, look at the right tools for the right job. So think about all of the methods that are available to obtain support. and figure out based on some of the guides in this presentation, right, what the ideal method is to try to source your information or get help with the project. And keep in mind, all of this doesn't happen overnight, right? We didn't just step into it and we're like, yeah, we're in the mailing list, we're in the discussions, we're filing everything, right? It took us some time to figure out where we were to land on our feet, and that process is still ongoing, right? I think that's something where we continue to plan to educate new engineers, new support staff as they come on board, how to get involved, how to find more information about documentation and get them more involved in the community here with CloudStack. And with that, thank you all for your time. And are there any questions?